Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar entitled Smarter IT Through End User Analytics. I do want to point out up front that today's webinar is being recorded. The recording will be shared with you via email sometime in the near future and will also be posted to our website, fruitionpartners.com. So let's jump right into it. Here's a look at today's presenters: Alan Johnson with Fruition Partners and Mike Oleksinski with Nexthink. Alan's been part of quite a few Nexthink implementations over in the UK, so he'll be highlighting some real-life use cases. And of course, Mike lives and breathes Nexthink, so he'll be talking a bit about its business value, particularly by distinguishing it from ServiceNow's performance analytics and walking you through a live demo. So if I could just get the two of you to say hello real quick. Alan, we'll start with you.
Hi, everyone. Great to speak to you today.
Thanks, Alan. Mike, if you could do the same.
Hello, everybody. This is Mike.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So when it comes to webinar participation, be active. If a question comes to mind, go ahead and enter it in the question box. I'll do my best to pose it to our presenters at the right time. If you prefer social, you can tweet at us using the hashtag up on the screen. You can see both of our Twitter handles are up there for Fruition Partners and Nexthink. Please note that we do have one poll question today. So be on the lookout for that poll icon in the coming slides. You can see that in the lower right corner. This poll is a great way for you to see where your organization falls amongst other attendees. Finally, if this is your first Fruition Partners webinar, here's a nice overview of who we are and what we do. We recently became the only ServiceNow partner to earn Master Solutions Partner status in both the US and UK. So we certainly scaled in recent months to provide better global service management support and solutions. This is up on our website as well. So feel free to visit fruitionpartners.com if interested in taking a closer look. So without further delay, I'm going to go ahead and pass the presentation off to Mike.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Good morning, everybody. And just a quick check before I start. Mike, hopefully you can see my screen there.
Yep.
What is analytics? Is that correct?
Looks great.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you, Mike. So again, this is Mike Oleksinski from Nexthink, and very excited to participate on today's webinar with Fruition Partners. We've been working with Fruition for close to a year now in terms of Nexthink technology. So the presentation today is going to be broken into three parts. And first thing is to give you an overview of positioning of what is IT operational analytics and what our technology does. I'm going to give you a brief overview of our integration that we have with ServiceNow. Nexthink is a certified integration partner and has certified integration status with ServiceNow. Our technology and some of the information on the integration is available on Share, which you can take a look at after the call today. And then finally, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the Nexthink technology itself so you understand what we do and how you can leverage IT operational analytics via ServiceNow and your ServiceNow platform. So to start, what is analytics, right? And it's a very broad term. It means a lot to a lot of people, and there's a lot of data that's available now via technology, right? You've got sensors in terms of wristbands now that give you health metrics, right, and health analytics. You've got sensors in your cars that help you understand the performance of your car and how it's operating. But essentially what analytics is, in a broad term, is to help you look at patterns in data, right, and give you insight in terms of what's exactly going on based on data that's now available to you that you can never really get before. So again, this is a new thing in terms of what you have from an analytics standpoint. So what Nexthink does is our technology is focusing more on the operational infrastructure and what we do from a technology standpoint. So when I'm talking to customers and when we're talking to different users that we're working with on a day-to-day basis, typically what are the top challenges that you face as an organization? And usually they fall into these 4 to 5 buckets. But you've got security relative to zero-day threats. You've got possible portfolio complexity relative to outsourcing your data centers in terms of technology, outsource applications, maybe internal applications. But essentially what happens here is usually what I'm hearing a lot of now is end user satisfaction, right? The quality of service that your IT users within your businesses are facing, right? And every time that that person is interacting with their application or with their device, what is their performance and what is their quality of service and what is their actual satisfaction, where on a daily basis they can come in and perform their jobs and use it on a very effective day-to-day basis. But as things become more complex, the gap is growing between the satisfaction that the users have relative to their IT devices. So quick mention here in terms of the poll. I don't know, Mike, if you want to discuss in terms of the poll situation here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so this is our first and only poll for the day. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that right now. Hopefully everybody should see a pop-up poll on their screen right now. So the poll question is, for those who can't see, of these challenges that were presented on Mike's slide, which ones are pain points for your organization? Options are portfolio complexity, project speed, zero-day attacks, end-user satisfaction, and then business alignment. So, of course, there's a limitation with the number of responses available through GoToWebinar. So if none of these are a challenge for you, that's great. No need to vote. So we'll give everybody about 15 more seconds to vote, and then we'll close the poll and share the results with you. So we'll go ahead and close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, poll closed. Here are the results. Excuse me. So again, the poll question was, of these challenges, which ones are pain points for your organization? 33% said portfolio complexity, 25% said project speed, 17% said zero-day attacks, 75% said end user satisfaction, and 50% said business alignment. And we also had a little over half of you vote. So thank you to those folks for participating. I'm going to go ahead and hide those results and pass the presentation back to Mike.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
So, again, and we appreciate your feedback via the poll today, right? But if you go to any of the analysts that are now following IT operational analytics, right? This is a growing market trend, right? So there's a lot of research that's being done by Forrester. So if you actually see this slide here, in terms of how IT executives are, and say their end users are struggling with business technology problems, right? And really it's the way to detect those problems, right? From a help desk perspective, from a analyst perspective, from a an overall CIO perspective, how do you get the insight in terms of what your end users are doing and how they're interacting with their devices? But again, Forrester did their poll and they had their little interaction in terms of what's going on, and it kind of matches some of the poll results that we had today. So I want to pass this along in terms of a lot of analysis. So as organizations, if you use Forrester or if you have access to Gartner, there's a lot of information relative to IT operational analytics and how this can help improve your IT services. So how is IT end user analytics different? I like this slide a lot from a technology perspective. We, from a Nexthink technology, is we enhance, we augment, and we complement the existing technology that you have. We're not looking to replace any technology that you currently are using, so your investment that you've currently made, you can continue to leverage. But what we do is, if you look at it, we're not on the left-hand side of the servers, we're not at the server level. Our technology from an IT operational analytics is not looking at the network. Where we are specifically focused on is end users end user monitoring and end user analytics. So there's going to be a couple key concepts that I'd like to pass along as we go through the technology and as we go through the presentation, but it's really important that we are focused on the end user perspective and giving you as a ServiceNow customer the analytics and the insight of what's happening from the end user perspective. So how are we different? First key concept is our technology, it comes from the left side of the screen. Our technology is focused at the end user, and it's not focused typically at the data center, which is on the right side of the screen. So in the past, when you had different types of monitoring tools or analytics tools, they were typically installed on the server, installed in the data center. You're looking at databases, you're looking at servers, you're looking at networks, and everybody's saying that everything is green and everything is operational. Everything looks fine. However, the person on the left side of the screen, from an end user and an endpoint, may still be struggling with a lot of their applications. So the first thing that we do is we look at it from the end user perspective. And when I say from the end user perspective, we analyze continuously, and the second key concept is in real time. So when things are happening at the end user and they're using their particular device, as things are going on, we are literally continuously recording this information in real time and sending the information back to the data center so you can analyze the infrastructure. So we look at all the applications, all the binaries. If an end user for some reason has to do a reboot, they have a hard reset, we can see all of these things and all of the interactions that happen on the device, whether they are directed by the end user or maybe behind the scenes relative to antiviruses running or services that are running on the back end in terms of their particular PC and their particular device. So that's a really key concept, right? It's coming from the endpoint. You now have visibility into what that end user is experiencing, and we're actually giving the data to you on a real-time basis. And I'm going to show you how this integrates into the ServiceNow platform shortly. But what it does do is it gives you insight into everything that's happening, all the applications, all of the IT services, right? How that particular end user's device is operating, whether it's their logins, their boot times, their CPU utilization, all the different things. And what it does is it looks at the anomalies and it looks at what's happening relative to that device, and it gives the data back to you as a help desk analyst or to the desktop infrastructure group to see what's going on in terms of the end users and their applications and the devices and the services. There's three components to our technology. The first one is the actual monitoring of the end user, and that is done via our collector. It's actually a very, very lightweight collector that gets put on the actual endpoint. And what it does is it sends the information in real time on all the different issues, threats, interactions, and everything that happens on the particular endpoint. Usually you can distribute out the collector via any, whether you're running Microsoft SCCM or any different type of PC lifecycle tools, you can distribute out the collector via those standard tools. In the middle section of the slide here, we have our Nexthink engine, and this is the analytics, right? So the monitoring, the collector sends the information back. You don't have to configure the collector. You don't have to manage the collector. You distribute it, you let it run, and you let it send the actual data. The engine is what does the analytics. It starts to look at all of the patterns, all of the interactions, and all of the things that are happening with that device and with that end user to give you meaningful data of what's actually happening. On the right side of the slide, you have the visualization. And this is your view into the data. And we actually have two views. One is specifically the portal, which gives you a kind of an aggregate view in terms of what's happening across the infrastructure. And I'm going to show you the portal in a little bit here. The portal is a fantastic technology which allows a lot of our customers deploy it within maybe their operations center or within their help desk to get a whole view of what's happening on the infrastructure. Sometimes from a portal view, a lot of the CIOs or VPs of infrastructure will use our portal as a kind of a daily view into what's happening on the health of their particular IT infrastructure. And then the other view is a finder, and the finder is specifically the real-time view into that endpoint in terms of what's actually happening on that particular device. And that's used a lot by the help desk analyst for call resolution. There are 3 primary business use cases that we have, and the one we're primarily talking about today is our integration with ServiceNow in terms of ITSM. We also have a solution for security, right, for zero-day threats, for malware that may have gotten through your infrastructure, and all of that information. So it's another layer in terms of analysis, because the threats today are quicker, they're faster, they're more targeted, and what we do is we're going to give you more information quickly so you can resolve those issues that may be occurring within your infrastructure from a security perspective. And then finally is transformation, right? Any type of project that you may have, moving from physical to virtual, moving maybe operating systems, could be possibly applications. But whenever you need to look at what's happened previously, what's happening during your project, and what's happening after your project, you can look at a before, during, and after to see the quality of performance and how that actual project is running within your organization. So there's 3 primary use cases from Nexthink. So the ultimate thing is you're going to move from we help you move from a reactive support state and a reactive management state to a more proactive state, right? Giving you data sooner, giving it continuous and in real time from the endpoint. With this analytics, now what you can do is you can look across your infrastructure and say, is that an isolated incident? Is it a systemic issue across my infrastructure? And let me go and be proactive and help resolve these issues maybe before they're occurring and before the end user actually interacts with them. So with this, I'm going to pass this to Alan at this particular point. Thank you.
Hi everyone. So just wanted to give you a couple of use cases where we've seen some real value delivered with Nexthink. The first one is an organisation called Bunge, who you may not have heard of, but they're actually an extremely large worldwide food company, an agricultural business. So the particular use case here is the ops manager. The way he said it was ServiceNow and Nexthink is a really good combination. It made his own job and his own career go upwards because it made him look intelligent. So any question, not that he wasn't anyway, but any question the CIO had to ask. So, for example, how many admin users there were, how many printers are left on overnight, what savings we could make by switching certain systems off, which browser types are which desperate browser types are used within the system. All these questions could be plugged into Nexthink as a question, and the answer brought back with the analytics that the collectors have brought together. The reason it was such a killer combination with ServiceNow is that when there was a call placed on the service desk, the analysts were immediately allowed to dive into this rich analytical information and tell the end user almost what the problems were. So, for example, someone raising a call or placing an incident on the desk, the analyst was able to say, yeah, we can see you had a problem. Your machine was slow at 3 p.m. We noticed that you hadn't upgraded to the latest patch of the browser, or there was an issue with network bandwidth. Or other common ones were actually browser extensions, where people innocently download browser extensions that are perhaps very noisy on the back end and talking back to other systems. So these kind of analytical questions can be answered very easily within Nexthink. And as I say, with the combination with ServiceNow, it makes it a very powerful toolset, certainly in the ITSM world. Could you move the slide forward, please, Mike? Thank you. So the other use case we have, as Mike mentioned earlier, was within IT transformation. So this is an organisation that were rolling out Windows 7 to their infrastructure, and they really wanted to know what the quality of service was and how that was being improved during that rollout. So as Mike said, there's a before, during, and after. And really a question that we know a lot of organisations get asked is, what does a good day look like? What does good look like? And that's hard to quantify unless you've got a system like Nexthink behind doing the baselining and figuring out what good end user performance actually looks like. A very subjective question. Sometimes you get users ringing the service desk saying, I've got really poor performance. Being able to quantify that with Nexthink is actually quite a key thing. You could actually dive into the tool and say, well, do you know what? Your performance hasn't degraded over the last week. It just may seem that way, but it hasn't. So one of the reasons that this organization used it as part of their transformation was to have an early warning system as the operating system has been rolled out within their managed estate. It was an early warning system to tell them any problems that users may experience before anything was raised on the service desk. So saving time and money on the desk. Really, the before and after was, I think this is one of the other use cases in the demo for later, but before and after, what's the quality of service? Is that improving? That's a really hard question to answer unless you've got a tool like Nexthink running behind it. As Mike mentioned before, it distinguishes itself. It's not an event management tool, so you're not sitting there looking at the screen watching things coming in real time. You have to ask Nexthink questions and think of questions to ask it, as it's collecting pretty much everything from the end user perspective. The other thing I'd say is that our customers have experienced value very quickly with Nexthink. It's not a heavy lift to get this in, so usually there's a thing called a Nexthink baseline service, or an NBS, which is effectively a POC that runs over 5 days. That in itself has proved hugely valuable to customers that we've worked with, in that you get a report at the end of it that says, you could make all these cost savings, for example, by turning these printers off, making people use one single browser to access the end user application. That would improve performance. These are the kind of questions that can be answered very quickly. So the return on investment is actually very rapid with this tool set. Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Alan. And this is Mike Henderson with Fruition Partners. I'm just going to interject here because it seems like a good time. We actually had a question come in from the audience. So thank you for the participation. The question is, how does the monitoring piece differ from the EMET tool? And I believe that's a Microsoft tool because he has MS in parentheses. Alan, Mike, you can look in the question panel too and see that question for yourself. But hopefully we have an answer for that.
Yeah, I can follow up afterwards too in terms of the exact question, but what the collector does, it actually sits below, it's actually a kernel level type technology where it gets just above the BIOS but below the operating system. So what it does is it's going to see all the interactions from a hardware and a software perspective in terms of all the events that run. So it's a very, very lightweight collector. It's a very, very lightweight tool, but it will enhance the current systems that you have from a PC lifecycle technology.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, and if an answer isn't sufficient, we will follow up with you personally after the webinar. It sounds like Mike's going to follow up with you, Michael, afterwards and share some more details on that. We actually have a couple more questions that came in, but Mike, we can save those for the closeout slide. I'm going to let you go ahead and continue here with the demo.
Great, thank you. Can you see my screen still, Mike?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So great questions. We appreciate the interaction. We appreciate the participation. So right here, what I'm showing you here is, again, it's an incident in terms of ServiceNow and your ServiceNow instance. And again, from a positioning standpoint, one of the things when we talk about IT operational analytics and we talk about Nexthink is, there's technologies that are now available from ServiceNow, right? Like performance analytics, where you're looking at the performance from inside your service desk system. We're complementing that. We are augmenting and complementing what technologies you currently may have from an analytics perspective. And really what we're doing is, the business use case, or kind of our demo case that we have here, is a user's calling in with a slow PC, right? They log an incident, they call the help desk, and they're saying, hey, my machine is just running slow. So what we're doing with our technology with Nexthink is, with the integration, is we're actually feeding the data from Nexthink, from the end user, directly in via the incident right within ServiceNow. So what it gives you the ability is, before you ever get on the line with that particular end user or to help resolve the incident, you can go in and get very, very specific health metrics of what's actually happening on that device. So if you look at it here, we actually have the information. It's condensed down where you have, it's broken into 4 categories: PC health, software and OS health, security, and network health. But if you kind of just expand these out, what it allows you to do as an analyst is say, what's happening here, right? I'm looking at this and everything seems to be green, right? But there's this one section where, again, the end user called in saying I'm having issues with my CPU and it seems to be running slow, right? So now you can see, well, it's happened today and it's also happened the previous week, right? Now you can get some information and you can look at blue screens, hard resets, system reboots, all sorts of different things, drive space on the machines, so you're going to get a good handle in terms of some of the information before you ever pick up the call, before you ever respond back. You're going to see what's happening with that particular end user. The other thing that we like to kind of point out is now you can start to be proactive. Is it just that incident that's being caused, and you want to resolve, or do you want to look at the entire health of this particular end user, right? So security and compliance, is antivirus running, right? Do you have spyware running? How's the firewall going? It gives you a lot more direct information, but you also look at maybe he's having some problems on the network. Like what could that be? So before you call in and before you actually respond back, you're going to get some metrics of what's going on with that end user in terms of what's happening. Now what you can do is you can launch the Finder directly from within ServiceNow, and you can actually bring up our Finder. And this is one of the main interfaces, and this is where I'm going to switch into from the integration perspective, but I'm going to switch right into the Nexthink technology. So this is one of the main screens you may be using. You could use the Finder from a level 1, level 2, or level 3 help desk person. It could be more your infrastructure team. You could look at it a variety of different areas. But the first thing I'd like to point out to you is it has this great Google type search, right? So I can go through here. I want to bring up that particular device and that particular user that called in with a question, right? So I want to look at this particular user and this particular device. So I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to go through here and bring up this actual demo. And what you have here is you have the real-time view into the actual end user device itself. So now, even if you can bring up the end user, the Finder, you can launch it, you can look at that end user's machine, and you're going to get a very specific, detailed view, real time of what's going on. We also compare this, we also kind of describe it as kind of like an EKG, right? It's giving you information, it's giving you data, it's giving you analytics, so you as the help desk analyst can respond more effectively to that user. We also compare it as a gigantic DVR, right? So you can rewind information, you can look back in time to see what's happening. But when you remember in the ServiceNow integration and instance, when you looked at it, that user was having problems a week ago on their CPU. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll back in time. I'm going to rewind this out, and I'm going to look back a couple of days, and I'm going to sit there and say, right here, you're having high CPU usage. It's bringing up information, right? It's spiking over 100%. Something's happened. And if you also look at it, you can see there's nothing happened, past the 9th here, but all of a sudden on the actual December 10th, there was some massive high I/O outputs. There's been some system reboots. You've got some logins, and you've got some binaries that were installed. So if you look at the binaries, something was actually installed on this device, a piece of malware that was actually put on there in terms of may have affected the actual performance of that machine. So what's great is you can see exactly what occurred, when it occurred, how it impacted the end user. But again, it's not giving you this is the exact problem and the exact root cause, but it's going to give you a tremendous amount of data so you know what probably caused that particular event to occur and how that user is experiencing with their particular device. So this is the Finder, and it's a great view, proactive view to take a look at the information. The other thing I like to do is we do everything just like with ServiceNow, with everything being a service, right, you're going to look at things that you may want to look at via service, applications. One of the popular ones you may want to look at is that we have here as an example is SAP, right? So what we do is we actually develop and we actually allow you to look at SAP via like maybe a service view. So now I'm looking at all the things that are happening relative to SAP across my infrastructure. I'm switching from the device view in that specific device, and now I'm looking at how that application is running across the infrastructure. So obviously here, right, something's happened across Paris, right? Something's happened in these particular locations, and it's giving you metrics information of what's going on. So all of a sudden you see a spike in terms of devices with issues. You see the percentages of failed web requests. Something's happened at 8 o'clock on this particular date, and it's impacting across the EMEA teams. So what you can do is you can actually look at it from the web activity standpoint, and you can see now the power of the Nexthink technology. And I'm going to pause here for a quick second and kind of show you what this does, but this is tremendous value for you in the organization. What it allows you to do is it allows you to look at how the end users, the binaries, the ports, the destination, and how it's being impacted across an infrastructure view. So you can look at these particular offices, and you can sort of highlight them in terms of what's going on. You can look at the information. But what's fantastic is now you get a map of what's happening across your infrastructure, why things may be occurring, and where the failures may be. So I can click on here, and I can look at all failed web requests. And I can look at it, and it's going to go through in terms of maybe looking at different information in terms of where the actual failures are. So now you get some highlights in red. So, well, again, remember we had certain offices that are being affected. It's coming with a 5x server request. But if we look at it, all of a sudden we notice that all the failures are going through one particular proxy in one particular area. The different offices that are using the other locations are having fantastic in terms of their performance relative to SAP. So again, another view via service to help look at and help you with your infrastructure teams go through and maybe from a level 2 or level 3 perspective, resolve those particular issues. Okay? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up our portal view and show you what we have from a portal perspective. Now this is more of an aggregate view. And the thing I like to highlight here is from a portal perspective, this is more of your historical analysis. The Finder that I just showed you will store the information real time for approximately 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the size of your infrastructure. Then what we do is we actually store everything historically to allow you to look back across what's happening in the infrastructure. The views at the top are tabs. You can customize the tabs. You can create your own views, and I can look at ITSM. I can maybe look at security, IT governance, and what it does for you is it allows you to get different types of views across the infrastructure. Many of the users that I have and that we're working with here that I'm working with in the States is the CIO or the VP of infrastructure or the help desk. Well, they're going to have this up within their NOC to take a look at performance across the infrastructure. So great views here, right? From an ITSM perspective is device health. You know, give me information across my devices of all the information relative to device metrics, right? Devices maybe with high CPU utilization, high page faults, right? How many are having hard disk resets, application crashes? So I can look at it by possibly device health. I can look at it maybe by applications. This is a very, very popular view that a lot of our users like, is just show me on an aggregate basis where my biggest problems are from an application perspective, right? Top applications with hangs, top applications with freezes, right? Different information. So now you can come in via the help desk, working with your IT operations team, work together as a team and go through and say, here's our top problems that we know of, here's the devices that are going on, and really work together in terms of how you may actually want to solve some of these problems. The views that I'm showing you here can all be customized. They can all be set up. based on how you'd actually like to run it and what data you'd like to actually analyze. Another popular view is from a security basis. So again, I may want to look at different types of antivirus. I want to look at antivirus, see how it's actually running across the organization. I may want to look at different types of desktops that may be having particular high threats in terms of maybe security issues, and going through here in terms of looking at it. So you can look at things by day, you can look at them by month, you can look at them at all different perspectives. But again, what we do with Nexthink is we give you the power of the data, we give you the power to look at the endpoint, we give you the ability to look at things from an end user perspective, so now you can see directly how your end users are using it and what they're encountering on their day-to-day operations. So many times users may be just, living in silence in terms of their performance issues. They may not want to call the help desk. And now what you can do is you can be more proactive and you can be more effective in terms of your IT infrastructure. Okay? So with that, I'm going to pass this, that concludes kind of the demo portion. Again, first thing I showed you was kind of the integration with ServiceNow and show you how you can get the metrics right within ServiceNow in terms of your incidents. Then what I did is I showed you the Nexthink Finder for real-time data. And then I gave you here what the portal view is in terms of looking across the infrastructure, looking at things on a historical basis, and have the ability to look at an aggregate view across your infrastructure. So what I'm going to do is switch back into the slides here.
Thanks, Mike. That was good.
I'm going to pass it back to Mike.
We actually had a couple questions come in. One came in during your integration demo. So I want to get to that right now since it's a little time sensitive. The question is, how does it interact with the user? Do we need an integration with an asset management tool too so that the user's machine is linked, or does Nexthink do that?
It's a great question. No, you do not need information relative to from an asset management tool perspective, because we'll provide all that information right within there as well to take a look at it within Nexthink. So there's nothing else required. It's a great question. Great.
Yes, thank you for the question, and thank you for the answer, Mike. A question that might be on a lot of people's mind, how much does it cost to incorporate this into the ServiceNow instance?
How much does it cost? So we provide the technology by the node, so it's based on the number of actual devices that you would like to install this on. And it's also based on the number of, and then the price point per node is based on the number of actual endpoints that you have. So it's a sliding scale starting at 1, going on all the way up to 10,000, 20,000 nodes. But it's done based on the number of nodes and not within the actual instances and usage.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
We actually just had another question come in. So great. Yes, please. Now's a good time to enter your questions. The next question is, what database infrastructure does your solution run on? Oracle, MS, SQL Server, etc.?
It's another great question. Thank you very much. That's a great question. Yeah. So that's a great one. Thank you very much for that question. So Nexthink runs a in-memory database. It's an actual database that we have that allows you to access the information with tremendous speed and quickness. So as we looked at it based on, how much data you're getting and how many endpoints you may be having, you need the ability to look at things quickly. So the Finder runs an in-memory database, so it gives you access via that engine instantaneously. And then we do is, from a historical basis, we use a Postgres database, and that's where you archive it afterwards. So there's two different. It doesn't use like a standard SQL type of database. That's a great question.
Great. So
I think just jump in there. I think it's extremely quick to, as Mike said, it's extremely quick to give you the answer. So the in-memory database has been designed deliberately, I know, by Nexthink, so that you ask a question, it gives you the answer very quickly.
Thanks for adding that in, Alan. I appreciate that. Obviously, we're sitting about 20 minutes before the hour, so we're giving you some time back, which is always nice. So I'm going to give everybody another minute to think of some questions. If anything comes to mind, go ahead and enter it in that question box. While you're thinking of potential questions, I do want to just point out that both Fruition Partners and Nexthink will be at ServiceNow's Knowledge 15 conference in Las Vegas. We're about a month away. You can see the dates up there. If you already registered or are planning to register, be sure to stop by the Fruition Partners booth. We're going to be in booth number 214. We'll have some swag. We'll be doing some demos. We can obviously provide you with some advice. Nexthink will be there with us. They'll be hanging out. So if you'd like a more detailed demo of what you saw today or have any follow-up questions, it's a perfect time to stop by, shake hands, and kind of do it face-to-face. Also, there's a second bullet on here. We are throwing a private network reception on Tuesday, April 21st. So if you are going to Knowledge and you're looking for a fun and relaxing way to spend your evening after a long day on the expo floor, reach out to your Fruition Partners rep. So I'm just going to take a look here at the question box. It looks like we had a couple more come in, and we obviously have time.
Do you want me to answer one, Mike?
Yeah.
Do you want me to answer the one about discovery? Yeah, okay. All right, Alan there. Yeah, so Nexthink isn't necessarily a discovery tool. So whereas ServiceNow Discovery effectively loading up credentials and then it goes away and discovers things, it's effectively an agent-based type system. So that the end collectors are rolled out using typically with SCCM, that sort of thing, into a desktop build. And from that point on, they're sitting there, as Mike said earlier, listening and collecting information. Very intrusively, I have to say. It's very, very low overhead. So it's sitting there and running, checking on, if anything happens on your machine, it keeps that and sends it back to the main server for analytical purposes. So it's not a discovery system. It's really agent-based, if you think of it as like that. It's got its own architecture. I think Mike showed that earlier on in the slides. That's not to say that the information, some of the information it does discover could be used in an asset database, so you could swap that around into ServiceNow CMS. But it's a completely different type of tool. Hopefully that answers that question.
Thanks, Alan. We have a question for you, Mike. Do you support your endpoint on mobile devices or only Windows PCs?
Another great question. Thank you very much. From that perspective, we do Windows devices. We also do Macs. We are releasing a new version of our technology. We have a release coming out actually next month for full Mac support. So we will do Windows and Macs. And then we are also releasing a capability in our new release to do mobile support via ActiveSync. So it's an exciting new release that we're rolling out. It's going to be coming out within the next, I believe, 45 days. But so we're going to have Mac support, we're going to have Windows support, and then we're going to do mobility support. And then we're going to do moving forward is see how we can maybe take the mobility to the next step and do some further integration there. So again, if you've got BYOD, you've got different things coming into your infrastructure, it's going to give you a view across all the different devices. But we're finding the Mac has become just more and more popular as people are using Mac laptops and different devices. So we support all those three platforms. Great question.
Yes, thank you, Mike. This is actually.
Would you like me to answer the?
Yeah,
it's a question about ServiceWatch.
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and just present it real quick to the folks who might not be paying attention to the question box. And yeah, Alan, this one's up your alley. Hans is asking, basically, what's the difference between Nexthink and ServiceNow ServiceWatch? Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, another good question. Yeah, and again, so ServiceWatch is really a targeted discovery. So the difference is that ServiceWatch will access an application via its entry point, typically a URL, and then work its way down the application stack and tell you exactly how that application stack looks in terms of a business service. So again, Nexthink is probably a wider net if you think of it as that. It's not targeted actually on applications per se. It's not an APM system. It's looking at how end users will access an application. So it will show you if there's issues in how perhaps performance over the network is degraded due to certain things. It won't show you, as Service Watch does, the business service map and where how those layers within that application stack are interacting in real time. So it gives you from the end user's perspective. That's the key thing to remember with Nexthink.
Great, thanks, Alan. Mike, if you don't mind just clicking over to the last slide.
Sure.
For me, that'd be great. Obviously, if you have a question, enter it. If you're kind of running into a roadblock, no worries. Our contact info is up on the screen right now. So if you think of a question after today's webinar, feel free to email either one of us, Fruition Partners or Nexthink. I do want to reiterate that a recording of the webinar along with a PDF of the deck will be shared with you sometime soon. So be on the lookout for an email with that information in the next week or two. I also want to point out that follow-up email also will contain a follow-up poll question, very brief. And for all the folks who participate in that poll, you will become eligible to win some free Nexthink services. I can let Mike elaborate on that a little more, but Nexthink agreed to give away some pretty cool stuff. So definitely incentive there to be on the lookout for that email. And it looks like the question box has come to a halt. So it looks like everybody's getting about 10 minutes back in their day. I do want to thank everybody for participating today. Mike and Alan, great job. Thank you for sharing your insight. Obviously, special thanks to the attendees. We love the interest and the participation. So we're definitely very excited about that. We hope to see a lot of you at Knowledge as well. So again, webinar recording shared soon. Contact info up on the screen. Mike, Allen, if you have any parting words before we close out.
Just take a good look at it. Oh, sorry. You go
ahead,
first, Mike.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's a really great tool, and I think the customers we put it in for have discovered the value very quickly. And I think if you're interested in analytics, and everyone is, with the complexity of IT estates these days, it does deliver value very quickly, and also goes in quickly as well. That's another key point.
And from an Nexthink perspective, we appreciate Fruition Partners in terms of working with our technology. It's very, very exciting, and we appreciate your support. And again, I just want to thank everybody for their time today. And again, if you'd like after this, you want to take another deep dive into the technology, we can help you with a specific kind of one-on-one demo or briefing to help you understand a little bit more about what we do and how we can help your organization with IT operational analytics. So thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see everybody at the next webinar. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.